Hello, good morning. And yes, this is the morning after the night before. Yes, we are live. We may be interrupted today by the wonderful Storm Eunice. I'm sure wherever you're listening, you're feeling a bit of Storm Eunice. But I'm delighted to welcome back to the show, In the Line of Hire, the show that brings you instant reaction and views on The Apprentice. Obviously, I say this every week now, but I was lucky enough to be part of The Apprentice journey by winning Series 4. Yes, I know it was ages ago, back in 2008. And over the past, 5-6 weeks or so, we've been reviewing the class of 2022. And moving forward, we'll continue to do that with weekly shows and very, very special guests. Each week, I'll be joined by my resident expert on business psychology, and of course, my CEO and my business brother of the assessment platform, Phoenix 51. Chris Wimshurst will be with us, as you can see on screen, sharing the analysis and data on each of the candidates. How are you getting on, Chris?
Yeah, very well, Lee. Thank you. How you doing, Joseph? You well?
Yeah, very well, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
No worries at all. We'll come back to Chris shortly on the data. You can follow us on @Lee McQueen on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn as well. We're going live this morning on Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn Live. So please get involved in the comments. I know Joseph is we'll be loving to have all your questions and so on and so forth as well. You can also download us after the event on a podcast via Audio Boom as well. And the cat's out the bag, because this week I'm delighted to be joined by the 2015 winner of The Apprentice, the CEO of Trade Mastermind, the Forbes 30 under 30 and serial entrepreneur. Oh my word, Joseph Valente. How the hell are you?
Awesome, my man. Thank you so much for having me on. And I just want to say, I backed you as my winner, Lee, all the way back then. I remember watching you as a younger guy, and I was like, he is a cool guy. He is a cool guy. I really wanted you to win. So it's very nice to be speaking to you all these years later.
Mate, I have to be honest with you, and for the audience watching and listening as well, I'll pay you later for that one, obviously, Joseph. But no, I appreciate you saying that, and generally as well, it's great to see your rise over the past 7 years. I am absolutely delighted to get you onto In the Line of Hire, because what you're doing and what you've done, and you're following on Instagram, and what you've done. I mean, it's not just one or two businesses you set up, right? I mean, people might forget about Impra Gas and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Tell me, Joseph. Tell me about your journey. Like, what have you been doing for the last 7, 8, 9 years or so? And then talk about your apprentice journey as well.
Well, I got into business at 22. I was a plumber that started a plumbing company, took out a £15,000 loan, bought a van, bought some tools and went to work. But I wasn't a businessman running a plumbing company. And, when I went on The Apprentice at the age of 25, I realized that if I was going to become a serious businessman, I was going to take my organization to the next level, then I would actually have to learn some business skills. People start businesses because they're good at the job, not because they understand business. And the two are obviously completely different things. So, realizing that I needed a mentor, realizing that I needed cash investment to grow, realizing that I needed exposure. When The Apprentice opportunity landed on my Facebook page at 9 o'clock on January the 9th, 2015, I knew that the universe had sent me a sign. I'm deep into the law of attraction. I believe in destiny. And I knew that was my opportunity to change my stars. And so, going on the show was incredible. As you know, it gets you insane amounts of exposure. Being around Lord Sugar for a few years was absolutely incredible. I learned a huge amount about being in that back-end boardroom environment, that really forces you to level up. Yeah. My current business, I train construction businesses how to scale up. And I remember sitting there at 25 years of age, being in business for 3 years, I had a £500,000 company, but I was by no means a businessman. I didn't really understand finance or the numbers or accounts. And the guys, Roger, and they pulled out these finances in the boardroom. I'm looking at them, I don't even know what these mean. Right? I didn't know really what a balance sheet meant, or a P&L, or a cash flow. And it was at that moment that I decided, right, I'm going to absolutely level up from this now and take this seriously. There's no way I can be embarrassed in a boardroom ever again like this. And so that's when I really went away and started to drive that knowledge. But do you want me to just carry on, or do you want me to?
I just want to catch you there, because one of the key things you said there, and I have followed your rise actually, and done a lot of reading and all that sort of stuff around your journey. And you mentioned about, you know, the universe, and you are very much around that, aren't you? That your destiny was to be not necessarily a superstar from a TV perspective, but a star from a business perspective. From a very early age, you wanted an opportunity. And like I said in the intro, right, you're a serial entrepreneur, right? Impra Gas, Power to Succeed, Trade Mastermind. Obviously, you've done a lot with which seems like from humble beginnings, to be fair.
Well, you know, where I grew up, there was a little village, actually, medium-sized village. I don't know why I said that, but yeah, where I grew up, it was a small town, Peterborough, right? And around the town, there's not a lot of ambition, really, for individuals. And, you know, people don't really leave the town and go off and do stuff. They do now, but back then they didn't really. No one went to university or any of that type of stuff. But, you know, my upbringing was challenging. My mum worked lots of jobs, dinner lady, cleaning, you know, lots of low paying jobs. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad didn't work. He drank all my mum's money, and you know, we really struggled financially. It wasn't a nice upbringing at all. And I remember very early on, from like 4 or 5 or 6, thinking, you know what, why is my life like this? Why can't we have this stuff that we want in life? Why can't we go on holiday? Why can't we have new cars? Why can't you know, I look at the back of the Argos catalogue and say, Mum, can you get me this? And she says, yes, son, of course you can have that, right? And so I was very blessed to have an uncle who was a very, very successful businessman. And he would come down once or twice a year in his suits, in his brand new Mercedes, Range Rovers, BMWs. And I basically saw that there was another life of somebody close to me that I could become. And so, you know, I decided at that point that I was going to break out from my circumstances and that I was going to change my stars, and I wasn't going to allow the same principles that my dad had to imprint on me. And I decided to become like my uncle. And then it became an obsession that I had to be better and do more and become somebody different.
Is it that relentlessness, being relentless, sorry, Joseph, in sense of kind of going after what you want? Because I meet so many people. I'm sure you do as well. I mean, you know, I you know, myself and Chris now operate a technology business, Phoenix 51, that sponsors this channel. That has got a valuation of about £4 million now, which is mad in a pandemic. That what we've done, but that drive and that focus and that kind of almost a humble beginnings enabled me personally to say, you got to work hard. You know, if that has to be one of the fundamental ingredients, you know, to be able to go on and be successful. Have you found that as well? Because there's a lot of people that will be watching this now that will be thinking, oh, you know, they've had a handout or they've got this or they've got that. But it's actually not the case at all, is it?
Well, you know, you're absolutely spot on. And, you know, people talk about working smart, and I'm all for working smart. But the key ingredients to working smart is first working hard. Getting a business off the ground is 7 days a week. It is 14, 16-hour days. It is absolutely relentless, especially if you want to do it quickly. You know, you can grow a business over 10, 20, 30 years at a pace. But if you want to have rapid growth, you've got to go all in. You've got to put an insane amount of hours in to get it off the ground. And it's tough. I took Impra Gas from one man in a van at the age of 22 to the largest independent boiler installation company.
I have 150 staff on it.
2029, and it was just insanity. I mean, and that's not a technology business, that's people, and that's engineers, and that's materials, and that's systems in people's homes. So very, very clunky and difficult business to run. A lot of stuff that can go wrong, you know, that can affect the margin and all of that type of stuff there. And so that was absolutely brutal, and that took it was 7 days a week, 16, 18-hour days to get it off the ground. And you know, although I didn't enjoy that when it got so intense, that it does have to happen if you want to do it over a quick period of time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we touched on obviously the pandemic. You know, I know probably a lot of people get a bit bored now with talking about it, but it's been such a massive part of all of our lives over, you know, globally over the last couple of years or so. How has been getting a business off the ground during a global pandemic? What fundamental differences have you seen, Joseph, in doing that? As I mentioned earlier, Chris and I have done the same thing. September 2020, we launched Phoenix, so it's been difficult, but very rewarding at the same time. How have you found it?
I mean, if I'm completely honest, I found it fantastic. I mean, the pandemic allowed me to isolate all distractions and go to work 7 days a week. There was nothing else to do. It forced my events business at the time to, because I left Impra, I parted and sold part of Impra and had to shut part of Impra down in January 2020. So then I decided, right, what am I going to do next? I realized that going from one man in a van to a national business owner, I was a tradesman that had built this empire, but I wasn't a businessman. And I realized that no one was training construction businesses on how to scale, the do's, the don'ts, the sales, the marketing, the recruitment, the strategy, the finance. And I said, I'm onto something here. I wanted to do personal development and training in the entrepreneurial world. I buzz off it. It gets me excited. I enjoy being on stage. That's my vibe, being in front of big crowds. And I realized that it wasn't done.
I thought you were quite shy, Joseph, to be fair.
So there was no one doing it in construction. So rather than compete with all these other entrepreneur people in the entrepreneur space, construction was my bag, and I thought I've got a niche here. So we tried to do an event in March the 17th in London. South Bank had like 300 people coming. It was incredible. And then the night before, they literally said no mass gatherings, and about 10 people showed up. Literally couldn't believe it. But it then forced me to go online and take it onto webinars and build an e-learning business. And so it went absolutely phenomenal. And then from that point, I just went to work 7 days a week. I was doing 2 webinars a week. And we've scaled up from March 2020 from me in my apartment to we've got 25 staff now. We did about 3 million turnover in that period of time. And we launched a recruitment company. And they're just about to launch a digital marketing agency to support the training business. So I found it strange because it was good for me, and there's a lot of people that it hurts. So, I don't want to be bragging and saying, well, it was great for me. It's bad for you. But it actually was a blessing in disguise, because it's amazing what you can do when you laser focus for 6 months with no distractions. You see that graphic on social media all the time. 6 months of hard work can put you 5 years ahead. And wow, I actually got to experience that. No restaurants, no bars, no going out, and look what you can achieve. Yeah, just pure focus.
And Joseph, I'm really interested in this. It's like, you've talked about hard work, you talked about that laser focus, but did you have any kind of personal routines or disciplines that you would advocate in terms of keeping yourself, I guess, mentally and physically on point to be able to deal with, the pressures of scaling a business?
Great question. I mean, my routine really is around continuing to invest in myself in terms of new knowledge. I believe that at every level of growth when running a business, you have to become a different version of you as a business owner. A lot of business owners grow businesses and the business outgrows the business owner. And then they don't bring in people quickly enough that can take over that next level of the size of the organization. And I saw it in Impra at every stage. When we were adding, at one point we were launching a new city like every month. It was madness. And building senior teams and putting in the systems and processes and understanding the financials and everything that comes along with scaling to that level. You've got to continue to invest in the knowledge, and it's daily. For me, it's daily. It's every free opportunity, absorbing as much knowledge as I can possibly get. And that really assists me to be able to keep up with the pace.
Is that through things like podcasts? Is that through speaking to people? Like, how do you gain that knowledge? How do you supplement?
Okay, good. So I use YouTube every morning. As soon as I wake up, YouTube goes on, and it's got to be a motivational video to get my mindset right, get my vibrations right, get me hyped up and focused for the day. And then books, audio. I'm only audio. Don't do any reading, and all audio books are on 2 times speed to get through them quicker. And mentors. I like mentors. I like to have actual people to speak to. I'm not really an e-learning type of course guy. I like to actually have conversations. So surrounding yourself with the right mentors for me it always keeps me on track. Masterminds as well. And again, I'm not just plugging that, but I'm in a few masterminds that I pay a substantial amount of money for because I like to be around the people that have been there and done it. And Lord Sugar was a fantastic mentor, right? But Lord Sugar was he wasn't a mentor that suited the construction service-based business because he didn't understand it. So he was able to help me in some areas, but he wasn't able to help me in others. So now I like to actively seek out mentors in a niche of where you want to get to. And, I've got a guy, Rob Moore. He runs a big property training company in Peterborough that I'm good friends of, and they do lots of business training. He's currently one of my mentors, and that's specific for the training business. And now I'm a bit more direct with who I'm after.
It's interesting you say that, actually, Joseph. I found the time of my career. I mean, I worked for a big corporate. I ran. I was a sales manager at the time, actually, for a massive recruitment company and big FTSE 100 business. And although I had quite a lot of experience, I never had the experience to set up a business from scratch. And then winning the Apprentice gave me that experience. Working with Lord Sugar, with his son Simon Sugar, CEO of Amscreen. We built Amscreen out. They've just opened a new office actually yesterday. I saw that on Twitter. Huge environmental facilities in Bolton. And and I think all the way back to when we first started that business, and that's what gave me, I suppose, the confidence and the skills to actually go and do my own thing. So it's really, I totally agree. Having a mentor, having someone to kind of think and look and learn after is critical, no matter how big you get. I mean, I'm an old fart now, clearly, and I can make 30, Forbes 30 under 30. I might end up making Forbes 40 under 40. I don't know. But the reality is that it is constant, isn't it? And it is always about making sure that you're moving on to that next level. And actually, that brings me quite nicely onto The Apprentice last night. Fascinating to hear your story. What do you think, Joseph, so far of the class of 2022? Have you been keeping up to date with the show? Obviously, last night's episode with the project managers and so on and so forth. But what do you think overall at the moment around the class of 2022?
I'm always in this. I'm always in two camps, because I'm in the camp of the viewer, where I'm like, "Why are you doing that? That was stupid." You're not making the right calls. But I'm also in the camp of a contestant, where I understand the pressures and everything that happens behind the scenes in the show. So it's kind of like I find myself jumping between the two, where I'm like, "Oh, that was absolutely terrible." I'm like, "Joe, don't be so harsh on them. They probably had this to happen or whatever." So I jump between the two, but. I mean, I've not been overly impressed, if I'm completely honest. I thought last night's episode, Akeem, he's just, the guy just can't make a call. I mean, if you're going to be a leader and you need to be a decision maker, and you got to be good at decisions. So I feel he was lucky that their team won, because I'm sure he would have
totally.
Yeah,
I agree on that. I mean, he nothing, no bad against Akeem. Hopefully, you're watching now, Akeem. Do you know what I mean? In the line of hire. But look, I mean, I think that the two project management tasks that he's project managed, he's actually won both of them. But I do think he's lucked out a little bit with some parts of his team, because it was literally, he was in the car, wasn't he? In the morning, saying to Catherine, "Yeah, I'm going to be decisive today. I'm going to make the decision." Yeah. And literally, he did exactly what he did the previous time. He just couldn't make a decision, could he, Joseph?
I know. And then when Lord Sugar was criticising him in the boardroom, he was agreeing with it. He's like, "Yeah, well, can't argue with that."
I was thinking, if he comes into the final three of the boardroom, can you imagine that? If you've got two strong characters next to him, he's going to be gone. So, to be fair to him, they've done well. Chris, just bringing you in. Have we got any data? I'm just going to share the screen now with our platform. How did Akeem? Wow, Akeem ranked quite low yesterday.
Yeah, so it was very difficult to score him. So the scoring matrix is built on when essentially individuals can demonstrate certain competencies and qualities. And because of his inability to essentially make a decision and have clarity around it, it was very difficult to score him. And I was joking with Lee earlier, saying it was more flip-flops in that episode yesterday than I've seen on a Spanish beach holiday. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like, there was basically I just felt like lacked conviction in any way. And I think when they were trying to make the decisions on when he was actually, who was going to be in the pitching and who was going to be on the commercial team, and it was just very, very weak, I think, in terms of his conviction and his ability to make a decision. And he went on screen right at the end saying, been PM twice, and you know, twice. But I think he's relied on the other individuals within the team, and particularly I think Harpreet on both occasions actually, to actually win the task. So I again, like, I may be proven wrong, but I think he's on borrowed time.
Joseph, can I just ask, and just for our listeners on audio as well? So we're just showing the graphic at the moment with Akeem. His overall score this week was 6. So what we're doing via our platform is we're putting data and insights wrapped around the key behaviours. So it's a fantastic recruitment tool and ultimately assessment tool. But actually, when you look at what we're looking for here is lots of greens rather than ambers and reds. And what you can see on screen at the moment is Akeem's graph. There's a lot of reds. I mean, his leadership is less than 10% needed. Would you agree with that data so far, Joseph?
100% on the leadership, drive and quality focus, influence and skills. Yeah, they're not very strong. Commercial awareness and overall seems pretty low. Yeah, I think I can't necessarily disagree. Interpersonal skills, high on green,
I mean, he's a nice guy, isn't he? He's a nice guy, isn't he? So, you know, that interpersonal skill aspect is quite high. That's his highest score this week. So he's quite you know, a nice guy. But well, I'm a nice guy, to be fair, and I did end up winning. I was going to say not always nice guys win. But I did. Let's have a look at some of the other ones, Chris, as well. I mean, you mentioned Harpreet there. She's top scored this week, even though she's a sub-team leader. I think Harpreet's got 16, I think, Chris. Is that right? Can we talk about that?
That's right. So, so if we, I mean, look, you know, I don't think anybody massively stood out this week. I think, you know, the top score that we've had in any of the shows, I think it's been 21. So, you know, the fact that Harpreet did okay, she did well, but I don't think that anybody absolutely smashed it this week. I think there was some good performances across the board. And if you have a little look here, you know, you've got Harpreet on 16, Catherine on 16, Brittany on 15, Akshay on 14, and Stephanie on 13. So actually, you know, you've only got 3 points in between the top 5. So I think there were some good overall average to good performances, but no particular standouts. But I do think Harpreet did well. She was assertive. She showed some good collaboration skills. She, I think, had to take the reins when necessary. When I think they realised that you know, that the group was not doing well, she had to jump in and essentially, you know, make up for, I think, Akeem's deficiencies. Yeah,
Joseph, what's your view on Harpreet as well? I mean, I actually agree. I think that the platform is nailing it. To be fair, her leadership, she had to step up because I felt Akeem wasn't stepping up.
Yeah, I think these points are spot on, to be honest, and a good representation of actually of how she's delivering and representing herself. I thought she seemed to want to take control, and she seemed to have some good sales skills as well towards the end. She seemed to be wanting to, you know, drive the decision making, which is good. You know, sometimes it's very, very different. There's always that candidate that wants to influence the task but doesn't want to take responsibility for the task, which, you know, can be you know, an irritant or an annoyance sometimes for the project manager when they're constantly trying to drive their point, but they didn't put themselves forward to lead. But also at the same time, if the leader's not stepping up, then somebody's got to come in and take the lead. And that's what she tried to do, which I respected quite a lot.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think what's really interesting is that, no offense, but that irritant person for me last week was Amy. You know, and I think that's why she got Lord Sugar's finger, because she was the one that sort of went, you know, let's do this, but oh no, I don't really want to do it. It's that kind of, and we've all had them in all of the shows that we've been on, right?
You know that, excuse me. You know the first episode is always the prime one for that. Like, there's a room full of people, no one puts their hands up. No one's got any ideas. They're silent. The second they say, right, you're project manager, everyone's like, right, this is what we got to do.
That happens. I remember actually all them years ago, for those of you that were unlucky enough to watch my series, our first task was the fish task. And we've walked into the boardroom fully suited and booted, like, you know, your best dress, your Sunday best. And Lord Sugar's come around and gone, your task starts now. And we're like, what? And he was like, go and get some wellies on and go and sell some fish. And that was basically our task. And I remember sitting outside this fish van with our wellies on and all the coats on and whatever, and no one would make a decision. To be fair, Alex stood up. He was project manager, and it was boys versus girls. And no one make a decision on the location where we actually sell fish. And let's be honest, right? Joseph, Chris, all the viewers and listeners, we ain't got a clue where we are going to sell fish. I mean, when have I ever done that before in my life? So no one makes it. And I just went, do you want me to do it? Do you want me to put my nuts on the chopper or something ridiculous like that? And I just made the decision, and we went there. We ended up losing the task, actually, but not because of the location. But it is that you have that, they're butterflies almost, don't you, Joseph, in your stomach? Oh man, if I don't put myself out there, then I'm never going to know if I grow. And I think that's a lesson in business in itself, is if you're always in your comfort zone, you're never going to grow, you're never going to develop. And the apprentice pulls it out of you kind of every week, don't it?
100%. I think the pressure of the process, and then mixed with being put into all these different scenarios which are completely outside of your comfort zone, really does test the individual, in all areas. And looking back on the experience, it does really weed out the weak from the strong very, very quickly. It's not easy at all. I mean, it's funny because we had to sell fish on the first task that we did as well. We went to Billingsgate Market, and they made us buy the fish and then turn them into fish cakes and niçoise salads, and then go and sell them in Aldgate.
It's a classic, isn't it? You had the hairnet on and all that sort of stuff, the white coat and the hairnet. And you're thinking, I've never made fish cakes in my life. We had slimy fish. We had to price it, right? So we had this fish, and we're looking at this chart, and we're looking at the fish, and we're going, do you reckon that's a monkfish? And all you're thinking in the back of your mind, like when you watch it back, you're thinking, oh my days, like 8 million people watching this every week when I was on back in the day. And I'm thinking they just must think I'm some absolute wally. But like you say, put yourself in that situation. It is quite incredible. So I do understand why they get put under pressure and stuff, for sure.
One thing that I always prided myself on in each task was to make sure that rather than being focused on what the project manager or the other team members were doing wrong, that I came out every time owning something that I did right. Because I always feel the boardroom, all the weak people, all they do is focus on how they pull the other person down rather than actually what they contributed. And, Lord Sugar sees that, he ain't going to sit and listen to someone that's, all talk and no substance. He knows when you're full of shit and you're not backing what you say. And, that's any candidates watching this, or any future applicants watching this, only what you do. Don't worry about the rest of the people, and don't dogfight out. Just promote yourself, promote what you did in the tasks.
And own it as well. I think that's massively important. Own it. There's people this series that have been fired because they didn't own them if it's a mistake, or they didn't. I remember. I think it was on series 5 actually. Yasmina champed that season. I think it was in Yasmina's series, in Kate's series, where somebody just kept coming in the boardroom and going, "Yeah, it was my fault." To be honest, I like the fact that you're owning your mistakes, but you can't keep being mistake after mistake after mistake, which actually brings me quite nicely to Akshay, Chris, because Akshay has lost a lot of tasks, but I thought he probably had his best week yesterday. What do you think about Akshay? Let's go back to perfect. Look at that. Good timing. Let's go back to the platform. So we've got Akshay. He scored 14 this week. What's, some strong numbers from him this week?
Yeah, so I've been quite critical of Akshay, and what we did last week, Joseph, is we did a story so far. So we got all of the scores cumulatively across the whole of the 7 episodes or 6 episodes, and Akshay was bottom of the pile. And I think first week he went in quite strong and didn't come across very well as a project manager, and has been very quiet and subdued and agreeing with a lot of other people and not having his own ideas. And I think I thought the writing was on the wall from him, to be honest, but he really stepped up this week. And for me, he had good commercial skills, which again is demonstrated in the graph. He had good creativity, good communication. I think he interpreted and did the best job that he could do in quite difficult circumstances with, Sophie's poor project management. And I just think that, maybe we wrote him off too early. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he could be. He's going to be one of the strong candidates towards the end for sure. Whether he's a winner or not, maybe a final five. And I think the way that the show is designed, it tests people in all different areas. So I think as we get further towards the end of the series, we're going to see whether his skills really shine and he comes into his own.
Joseph, we had the amazing Tom Pelleru on. I think it was episode 3 of In the Line of Hire, and Tom holds the record, I think, for the most losses in The Apprentice, and he still went on to win it, right? And that was by his own stats. I'd like to ask you what your stats were in terms of winning task versus losing task, but Akshay will have to come from a real position of being, from behind, essentially, to come through. And like you say, if he has strong weeks from now until the end, like you say, get into the top 5, if he's got a good business plan, that was something I wanted to ask you about as well. In my era, it wasn't about a business plan. It was literally about getting absolutely rinsed by the wonderful Claude. Hi, Claude. I know you're watching. But also, just being from that interview perspective, and Borden and Paul Kelmsey and stuff that interviewed us. Karen Brady actually interviewed me, but for you, it's about business plan as well. So, a couple of things in there. What's it like, from a winning losing position? What was your stats like, and how did you find getting into the top 5?
Even in the shows that I lost, I always tried to smash it and try and do something on the on the losing team that again, would stand out. So I could find my corner. I can't really remember what the stats were. I was project manager twice, and the first one was where you have to go and find all of those items in different locations. That was always one of my favorite from being a fan of the show, and I won that one, which I was very pleased with. And then in episode 9, which was close towards the end, we did a property task, which I ended up losing. But again, coming off the back of the loss, I went straight in there, and I didn't try and smooth the real estate guy. I just went and tried to negotiate straight away on the best commission he could give me. And he thought I was too rough around the edges to sell his Canary Wharf properties, is what he told me at the time.
Oh, really?
So I didn't get the Canary Wharf property. I got the Stratford properties, which were like, a quarter of the price of what the competition had. So there was no way that I was going to be able to sell the most real estate, because they had much more expensive properties. So I lost that task. But like you said, I just came out of the back of it and I just owned it. I was like, look, I went in, I misread the situation. I tried to get the most commission to make the most money, because that's what the task was about. And, it's not like I've got ages to try and build a relationship with this guy. I had a 10-minute meeting to convince him. So I just went gung-ho. Lesson learned. I've done all of these other things in the other 8 tasks. So there's no way that you can fire me right now compared to the person that I'm sat next to. She's got to go.
And I think it's that always contributing something. I think that's really, really important. Always, even if you're on the losing task, always contributing something. Chris, just coming back into
I would also say on the ability to own it when you do make a mistake is really important. I think that resonates well with Lord Sugar. I felt like when some people have got fired because they've made a mistake and they haven't owned it. I agree. And I think that, there's definitely something that, the more perceptive individuals who are still in, they need to learn from that, because, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, we all make mistakes, right? But it's how we learn from them and how we adapt and evolve. That's what defines you.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you're a leader, or if you're going to work with somebody, you need to improve that person. And if they're constantly trying to justify why it was somebody else's problem, I have that in my business now all the time with different people, and you just lose interest straight away, because you can't fix that person if they can't own their shit. And so you gotta get rid of those people and get people that can develop.
And to be fair to Akshay, just finishing off on Akshay, he's probably done that quite well. Yes, he's lost a few tasks or whatever, but he's started to own and say, look, I thought he was very calm, collected. I think he was very confident in the boardroom yesterday. And, and Lord Sugar obviously felt the same, because he actually singled him out, didn't he? And said, you're not going home. You're staying here. So he was safe in that way. Let's come on to the project managers. I find it obviously we talked about Akeem already, but in terms of Sophie, what was going on with Sophie? Because actually put himself forward and said, "Look, I love cars. I can design a driverless car. I can I know a lot about this and get passionate about this." And then the girls, to be fair, voted in, if you like, Sophie as project manager from an interior design perspective, and then she put together some sort of tacky karaoke. Quite frankly, viewers and listeners, I would have quite liked that. I would have got my karaoke out. But seriously, what was going on with Sophie? Was she just out of her depth?
Well, I don't know whether I've not seen all the episodes. So I don't know whether she's been project manager previously or not. So maybe she was in a position where she was like, right, the series is kicking on now. I better actually put myself forward. And when you're in that position and you haven't done it yet, you're under pressure to try and latch on some area of expertise that you have to one of the tasks. So she could have put herself forward and not have been the right moment for her, but felt the need to or the pressure to, or her team could have outvoted Akshay to put her forward, knowing that they wanted to get her out. You never know what the other person.
Interesting.
And so it's like, right, put the weak one forward, because if we do, and we'll get them out of the way. I did play a couple of games like that when I was doing it. I moved people around into different areas to get them out of the way. There is that element to it again. And again, if Akshay's not delivered on multiple tasks and he put himself forward, then and he got outvoted, then that's not great for him. He needs to level up by the sound of things now. To each episode moving forward, because you can own loads and loads of mistakes, but now he's got to actually deliver something. So it seems to me again like maybe she was just out of her depth. She made the wrong calls and she produced a random product.
She did. I mean, let's have a look at her data, Chris. I mean, Sophie, we're just pulling her data up now for the listeners on audio. Wow, lots of reds on here. Wow, Chris. I mean,
it's a compelling case of why she was voted out. I think that for me, one of the cardinal sins that was happening was that when they had the opportunity to speak to the client before they went and designed their product properly.
Brilliant.
And they didn't ask any questions. There was no probing. No. There was no understanding about what the client wanted. And therefore, they just went away and did something completely random. They marginalized themselves by creating a niche, like fun product. Actually, that wasn't what they wanted. They wanted something that was professional, that was available to a mass market, and they had £1 million to spend, and they just missed the target by a long way.
They would have felt sick, Chris, wouldn't they? Joseph as well, listeners, viewers. How sick would you have been when you found out later that they had £1 million budget? You'd just be like, oh my gosh, massive issue. And what's interesting about her, Sophie's data as well in front of us, is that she probably got 5% overall on over the key behaviours and competencies we're looking for, and creative thinking. She put herself forward as somebody who's really creative, really good with interior design, yet completely flummoxed it. And I think the thing that killed it for me, for Sophie, was when she changed her mind. There was no direction when she changed her mind. That's okay to change your mind, but you have to give clear direction as to where we want to go now. She did not do that in that task. And I had in our series, I had somebody that was like that would would get something completely set, ready to go, and then all of a sudden she'd change her mind and she'd be like, actually, I think we should do this. And you think, are you trying to stitch me up here? Like, it was almost like you were trying to stitch me up. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, that's where the task completely fell down. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah, 100%. Again, you got to make a decision at times, and you got to stick to it, especially in the time frames that these guys have got to work with, because it's not long. So you're changing your mind at the 11th hour. You've got to be able to make sure that is 100% the right decision. And to lead a team of people, especially a team that you're not in control of, the sub team is difficult to manage, Lee, as you know. It's done by phone. You can only call them when they say that you can call them. So the lines of communication are very challenging anyway, and they'll have learned that by the process up until this point. So that small time that you get to speak to your sub team, you've got to give clear direction, or it always ends up coming back and they're like, but you said this on that point, we didn't get to speak to you again, and so on and so forth. So she maybe misread how the process works and the time she actually has to communicate with their people as well, which hasn't done her any favors at this point.
Totally. And she wasn't that assertive either, to be fair. Even when she had an idea, she didn't really want to put it. It did feel like, I mean, thinking about, I never did tactics like you mentioned earlier, to be fair. I just rocked up and was Lee McQueen. But actually, were the girls that voted her in, like Stephanie and Catherine, were they who voted her in as project manager? Were they kind of in the back of their minds thinking that tactically, right, let's get Sophie out of the way? Well, I suppose we'll never know until we can get him on in the line of hire. They can tell us. But look,
I had one guy, and I'm not going to say his name because I'm friends with him now. But at the time, one of the other guys that I was friends with, he said, this guy's talking about you, and he's saying, that you're full of BS and you're all hot air and you can't deliver. And then we just so happened to lose that task. So I said to the project manager at the time, I was like, bring me back to the boardroom. Bring me back. I want to come back. That guy's getting fired. And he took me back to the boardroom and I absolutely savaged him. And he got fired. I was like, that's what you get for trying to snake me behind my back. So I actually asked to come back to the boardroom so we would get him out, which I thought was pretty cool.
What tactics. Well, look, let's talk about we're going to run over time, conscious of time, so let's just do a bit of a wrap up as well. I want to talk about what you've got going on as well with Trade Mastermind. But just to finish off on the series so far, do you think it was the right person to be fired? Was Sophie the right person did Lord Sugar get it right, basically?
Yeah, I think so. Again, at this point, the candidates are starting to really slim down now. So in his mind, he's already starting to pick the winner. So just needs to start, getting people out the way that aren't going to make it to the end. And she definitely wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was quite interesting, just quickly on Lord Sugar as well, when he said about, are you sure? Like when she said she was going to bring in the two people, he went, really? Are you sure? And then she changed her mind, didn't she? She was bringing Catherine in. And I was like, okay, Lord Sugar kind of knows who he wants.
Bringing them back is an absolute no-go.
Yeah, totally. Exactly that. Who's your front runner? We always talk about, I think it's quite interesting actually how Apprentice winners always talk about the top 5. That's kind of a key milestone, isn't it? If you can get to the top 5, you've got a chance of going on and winning the show.
Yeah,
who would you say that would be your kind of top 1 or 2 or top 3 if you like?
From what I saw last night, again, I've not watched every episode, but from what I saw last night, I thought Harpreet was quite strong. I don't know too much about our business, so I don't know what the plan is there. Akshay will definitely get to the final 5. Don't think he's a winner. I think Akeem will get to the final 5. Don't think he's a winner. I
think Catherine has been consistently strong throughout the whole process, personally for me. And she was the one, I thought she got a bit fiery yesterday in the boardroom, which I hadn't seen before, which I quite like. A bit more forceful in the boardroom. Although I know she lost last week's project manager and Stephanie won, and I think Stephanie's quite strong. The things about Stephanie is that sometimes she seems a bit quiet. And I bet she's not quiet. It's just what we're seeing on camera. Yeah. But sometimes I'd like to see a little bit more of her. But maybe that's because
tactical. I was putting my chips on a guy to win it this year because I'm sure a guy's not won it for about 2 or 3 years now. So I thought just by the law of averages, he's got to pick a guy. Forget about whether it's male or female. I thought he's got to pick a guy this year, but there's only a couple of guys left, isn't there? About 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah. So what we've got Aaron and Nick and Akeem and Akshay.
Yeah, Nick's definitely getting fired at some point. Like in the next show, he's 100% a goner. Aaron. I'm not too sure. Did he
with Aaron? Aaron's a strange one again because I don't know whether it's part of the edit or not, but he seems like he's got something. He's been quite consistent, but we didn't see that much of him. Again, Brittany, we haven't talked about Brittany today either, but I thought she was pretty strong yesterday considering how quiet she was in the early weeks. So it's going to be very interesting. I think the next few episodes are really going to show us, who's going to be stepping up to win the whole show.
Yeah, we talked about Harpreet and Brittany as being like, the mid-table, and then they needed to step up, and actually both of them did from last week. So that was really good to see. I think, like Stephanie had a bit of a quieter week, as you mentioned, but I think she was really tactical yesterday. I think she let Sophie hang herself. She was literally just like, yeah. And I think Catherine picked up on it as well, which was like she had all these opinions, which she held back. and basically just let her do something stupid, and then suddenly it was like she just went in for the kill. And I was I think Stephanie's got she's my pick.
Tactics, people.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. So, Joseph, if I can get a prediction of a winner, you've had your chips on a guy. Do you think a guy will win? Who are you going for?
I don't think any of those guys are going to win. No, I think it will be a lady. I don't know which one, if I'm completely honest, but I'm going to say Harpreet. Only based on what I saw last night.
Yeah.
I didn't really see too much from the other people. There was a guy, Alex, actually, that I put my chips on right from the beginning.
I have to be honest, I did as well. I'm not going to lie.
He had a £1 million cleaning company. I thought, well, he's got to have a good commercial business at the back end. So maybe that's going to help him get further. But apparently he wasn't very strong throughout the episodes, and he was a goner. So
when he project managed, he was, no offense, Alex, mate, if you watch him, but he wasn't very strong. And I think I reckon he's the sort of person that'd be absolutely kicking himself, thinking, damn it, because I know that he can do better than that type thing.
Yeah.
And it was a shame for him to move. Okay, look, Joseph, you've been absolutely amazing. It's been an absolute ball having you on this week. Where can people find you? How can they follow you? Talk to me about Trade Mastermind. I know this is a big conference event that you've got going on, isn't it? This is it next week? Six days? Is it six?
Yeah. So next week we've got the 7-figure construction business builder, which is basically designed to help businesses scale to 7 figures and beyond. Helping people go from tradesman to businessman, basically, is what we do at the Trade Mastermind. And if anybody wants to follow me, it's at Mr. Joseph Valente across all platforms: TikTok, Twitter. Doing a lot of TikToks now. TikTok's good. If you want to get some organic, are you on TikTok?
No, do you know what? We're not on TikTok at all.
Right. So if you do any of your own personal stuff, recently I've been chopping up bits of my Apprentice series and popping it on TikTok. The most recent one I did got like 2 million views. It got me 10,000 followers in 24 hours. Like, there's a lot of hot traffic on Apprentice content to TikTok right now. So you guys should be, what you're doing with this business, get on TikTok straight away and pump it. We put a video on the Trade Mastermind of me giving a watch to one of the ladies that's been here for 7 years and some flowers to congratulate their anniversary. It's had 11 million views. It got 11 million views in like literally 72 hours. We've got about 25,000 followers on the account in literally 48 hours. It's massive opportunity. Yeah,
that is incredible, mate. And it's good
a lot
advice.
Of organic virality where the other platforms are dead out at the minute. You know, with
for sure, mate, for sure. Love it. Well, look, there you have it. You know where to follow Joseph. He's been absolutely outstanding. 8 down now. Next week's show will be at a later date on Monday as a pre-record with the amazing Scarlett Allen Horton, one of the Apprentice finalists, of course, of last year or the year before COVID. Please subscribe on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and via Audio Boom. And if we can get our marketing right this week, you can probably also follow us on TikTok, based on Joseph's advice to us as well. Joseph, you've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you once again.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
To like and share. See you next time on In the Line of Hire.
Sweet.